So I got another topic to talk about. As you already know from the title of this video, for today I want to discuss a little bit about what is the difference in PvE damage between offhands. And mainly I want to discuss if Kutum actually does have any form of hidden monster damage and if it's actually worth it to even make a different offhand just purely for grinding. Because many people actually make Kutum offhands just to grind, and then they make another offhand like a Rosar or a Paring just for PvP. So basically they are running two different offhands, one for PvE and one for PvP, and I want to see if it's actually worth it to invest that much money to level up a boss offhand just purely to grind. So the reason why I'm getting to talk about this topic just now, even though I wanted to make this video for about 2 months, is because I finally actually need the money and I want to sell my Nouver and my Rosar daggers. So I've been sitting on those two offhands for quite a while now and I don't really use them at all. So I just want to make some use of them by making this video, and then I'm going to sell my Nouver and my Rosar offhands. So I'm going to be using those two and my Kutum offhand to compare these three different offhands for PvE damage, because Nouver has the highest amount of attack power but offers no other special type of effect. Then Rosar of course offers the least amount of attack power, but in exchange it has the special attack effect on it. And the last one is a Kutum offhand, which is supposedly going to give me some hidden monster damage. So each of these three offhands have something about them that is special, and I want to see which one of these actually is the most valuable in PvE grinding. So before we get started, let me tell you guys a few things about how I'm actually testing these. So basically I'm going to be using the same method that I used a while ago when I tested the AP cap at Duodecil and at Saucons. So basically I'm going to be using a ruler that is the exact same size, and I'm going to measure the HP bar on monsters and see which offhand basically can do the most amount of damage with the same skill that has 100% crit rate. Now, since the last time I actually learned that one of my 100% crit rate AoEs, basically the fire one, can knock down people and do down attack on top of that. And also, since the AoE range is so big, it also can sometimes do back attacks. So this time I decided to use Aqua Gel instead, which is another 100% crit rate AoE, but this one does no knockdowns, and from what I can see it also has no chance to do back attacks. So basically by using this skill I can eliminate completely those errors, because the only types of damage that I'm going to be doing is critical rates, and since the skill has 100% crit rate, then the damage should be consistent for every monster that I hit. Because also, since I'm running a skill reset for 30 days, I removed the passive from the pet that goes on top of the Aqua Gel. So basically I'm only going to be using the base level skill, and I will have the multiplier for that somewhere on the screen, but basically I'm using just the base skill without the pet that has 100% critical rate. Now, in terms of the actual test, I'm going to be testing these two different ways. Firstly, I want to take each of these three offhands and compare them to each other by using the exact same gear and just switching out the offhand. So basically I'm going to have different attack power values for each of these by basically simulating the exact gear as if I would just switch out my offhand. And secondly, after that I want to make another test that it's not really so practical, but I want to take each of these three offhands and get them to the exact same attack power value. So for example, I'm going to be using 206 attack power, and for Nouver offhand I'm going to be removing more accessories, and for the Rosar offhand I'm not going to remove anything. So just to be able to get them to the same value and see exactly what what is the difference between no special attack on the offhand, between special attacks and that monster damage. So basically I'm going to remove the AP differences and test only those special types of damage. Now for the actual testing area, I decided to use bandits because it's not really a low level area, but it's also not high enough for people to not be able to grind here. And also since I'm level 60 and I have pretty much the basic accuracy from Xarka, Bags and 16 from gems, then I have a high chance to actually hit here. So I'm pretty sure my accuracy here should be 100% or almost there, because I really didn't see any misses, as in my skill was hitting with everything. Now we are already pretty far into the video, so let's finally get started with the actual test. Now the first offhand that I tested is Nouver, and this is the only one that I had to test in two different ways, because this one has 2 awakened spirit crystals inside, so it has 10 hidden damage or 10 attack power hidden, and the other 2 offhands are actually empty, so the other 2 don't have any gems. So starting off with Nouver, the first test that I did was with my full gear on. So I basically had that 10 hidden monster damage just in case someone wants to see this value. And I did a total of 5 tests, and I basically made 5 tests just to make sure that I don't have any accuracy problems, and if I make an average out of those, if it's even worth to make an average, basically I got about 60% of the monster's HP in just one skill. Not really much to comment there, so let's move on to the second test for Nouver. Basically for the second one, I tried to remove, or I actually removed 10 attack power from my accessories to simulate the 10 hidden damage that I have on my Nouver. So if those 2 awakened gems actually count as real attack power, then the 10 attack power that I lost from my accessories should make up for the difference. And testing this again on the same elite mob, I got a total of 58% of its HP down, so the damage kind of decreased a little bit. Keep in mind that these values are as close as I could get to approximate the monster's HP bar, because I resized the ruler to 50% of its actual size, so those are not even real millimeters because the ruler is smaller, and if I would have made it any smaller then I would probably be unable to see it. But basically the mob HP bar is 25 total millimeters, and I tried to estimate as close as I could get about how much of its HP was actually taken. Moving on to Kutum, as I said, I just simply switched out my Nouver for my Kutum offhand, and as a result my attack power decreased a little bit. And again I did 5 different tests just to make sure the accuracy didn't fail me, and in those 5 tests I basically concluded that the outcome was about 60 or 61% total HP damage. So basically I will make an average and say that the total damage was 60.5%. Already from this result you can probably see that since Kutum is doing about 60% of the HP as damage, then it kind of does the same damage as my Nouver with the gems inside. So that's already pretty interesting. Moving on to the third offhand, I switched out the Kutum for a Rosar, and again I tested 5 different times, and this time the result was about 56% of the monster's HP. So while switching to Rosar, the damage did decrease a little bit, and that's most likely because first off I did lose even more attack power, and secondly because special attacks probably don't do as much damage as the hidden monster damage inside Kutum. Also, the attack power gap between Rosar and Nouver is pretty big, so that might also be playing a big role in the damage difference. So let's make a conclusion for this first part of the test. Basically, I'm going to use the Nouver without gems as a base value for the damage, because Nouver has no special type of damage, so it's just pure attack power. So the base for Nouver is about 58% total HP damage, because I'm using the one without gems. So if I compare this value with Kutum and Rosar, then Kutum did a total of 104% damage compared to Nouver. So basically Kutum was doing about 4.3% more damage than Nouver, even though they have different attack power values. And about Rosar, since that one scored about 56% HP, then this one stays at around 96.5% damage. So comparing Rosar to Nouver, then this one did about 4% less damage. So if we take Nouver as a base, then basically Kutum is doing 4% more damage and Rosar is doing 4% less damage, or somewhere around those values. Keep in mind that I am a wizard, and for me usually mobs either die in one skill or in two skills, so I'm pretty sure this should be pretty accurate for every class, because this skill is 100% crit rate, but I'm not 100% sure if these 4% values may change between classes. Like for example, some classes may gain a bigger difference from Kutum and others lower difference. Like for example, in my wizard's case, I really wouldn't invest any money into making a Kutum offhand if the difference is only 4% more damage, because that's basically nothing in terms of grinding speed. So now let's go quickly through the second part of this test, where I basically took all the three offhands to the same attack power value. So starting off with Nouver, again I tested this one with and without 10 attack power bonus, just to make up for the difference in those gems. And with the 10 attack power bonus, Nouver scored about 56% total HP damage, and without those 10 attack power extra points, it scored only 52% total damage. Moving on to the Kutum offhand, this time for these three offhands I did only 3 tests, because the accuracy seems to be pretty consistent. So for the Kutum offhand I got 58% total HP damage to 206 attack power. And lastly, moving on to Rosar, this one scored again 56% total damage, because basically the attack power didn't change at all from the previous test. One small thing that I want to note is that for Nouver I actually had to go under 200 attack power to actually make up for that 10 attack power difference. And some people may argue that if you go under 200 attack power, the difference is too big, because most people say that after you hit the 200 attack power cap or limit, you get a bigger difference from what you got before. So basically the difference between 190 and 200 should be pretty significant. So I'm not sure if this will influence the test in any way, but I'm just pointing it out for you guys to know. So doing the exact same thing again, if we take Nouver as the base value for the test, then since I took all of the offhands to 206 awakening attack power, Nouver doesn't have anything special, so it's just pure attack power. So Nouver scored 52% total HP damage, and this is going to be the 100% damage value. Comparing Kutum to this, Kutum scored 58% total HP damage, so in comparison Kutum did about 11.5% more damage than Nouver. So this is basically the damage difference you're going to get only from the monster damage inside Kutum. So this is basically negating all of the attack power differences between offhands, and that's exactly why I'm saying it's not really a practical comparison. And about Rosar scored 56% total damage. So in comparison to Nouver, basically Rosar scored about 7.6 or 7.7% more damage. So again, if the attack power values were to be exactly the same, then the special attack on Rosar still does about 7.7% more damage. And that's of course taking into consideration that your skill will always do critical hits, which in a real case scenario doesn't really happen. So Rosar's special attack shouldn't be that efficient because most skills don't have 100% critical hit rate. So even though in a real case offhands will never have the exact same attack power value, I still want to say that basically special attack will give you about a 7% increase in damage and monster damage about 11.5 or let's say 12% increase in damage. So if by some miracle offhands would have the exact same attack power, then this would be the difference between them. Now, since we are getting close to the end of the video, let's make a conclusion of what we got so far. So in terms of PVE damage, in a real case scenario then Kutum is going to do about 4% more damage than Nouver, and Rosar is going to do about 4% less damage. So I would say that if you're looking for doing as much damage as possible, then the difference between offhands isn't really big enough to be worth it to build a separate offhand just purely for grinding. On the other hand, if you are a newer player and you're looking for a main offhand to build or just your first offhands, then there are only two viable choices in my opinion. The first one is of course your class specific accuracy evasion offhands like the Sayer for Berserkers and Dark Knights, or if you don't have those, then I would suggest you just go for a Kutum offhand. And let me actually explain to you why. First off, the PVE damage between offhands is really pretty small, so you're not really going to lose that much if you go for the class specific accuracy or evasion 1, or if you go for Kutum, then of course you're going to have the best PVE damage. And also on top of that, you're going to have some DP and evasion built in to allow you to survive bigger level areas, because as a newer player your DP probably isn't really that great. So that's already a plus comparing this to the pure attack power or pure accuracy offhands. Also, in the current state of the game, I didn't really test this myself yet, but basically if you want a PvP offhand to do as much damage as possible, then just go for the accuracy offhand or the attack power offhand. Basically just don't go for Nouver, because the normal attack power offhand is supposedly giving the same damage if not even more, just because it has that special effect on it. So if you're looking for a future PvP offhand and want to also have something good for PvE, then Kutum is probably the best way to go, simply because it's the best PvE offhand and it's also a pretty decent hybrid offhand for PvP, because the damage on it is decent. You're going to have some accuracy bonus, some evasion, some DP, and also that ignore resistance. So all in all, as a result, I would say that for PvE the difference is really no difference. So if you want to build something, just go for the Kutum or the class specific accuracy evasion offhands, because what you want to have in mind is PvP. Or of course, if you're low level, then you want to have in mind to get some DP from your offhand to survive. Now, I hope I really didn't upset anyone by saying that Nouver isn't a good offhand, but still, in my opinion, and this is of course just my opinion, the entire video is only my opinion, but Nouver at the current state in the game doesn't have anything special to put it above the other offhands. Now the video is finally done, so if you made it this far into this pretty long video, then thanks a lot for watching, and if you enjoyed it then maybe consider giving it a like, or if you didn't enjoy it then by all means please give it a dislike, because any type of feedback is welcomed. And if you have any questions about this topic, then you can leave a comment below and I'm going to do my best to answer it. Also, to poke in some little self-promotion at the end of the video, if you enjoy this type of content and want to see more of it, then maybe consider supporting me on Patreon because it helps me a lot in building up the channel. So yeah, sorry again for the long video, thanks for watching and I hope to see you next time.